Oh, yay. Well, hello, friends. I have a fantasy, and it's called Through the Syntropic Lens. And I've been wondering how to navigate this in a way that is new, that is different, and that is not of, well, I come up with this idea, I create a nice little image around it, and now it's my thing, and I get to do it my way. And it's about me connecting with people that I can then shine light on, and so forth. And I haven't really worked out how to navigate that until tonight. And so I'm super excited. And that's why we're also going live. This is going to be a regular thing, looking at life through the syntropic lens, looking at mayhem, distortions, chaos, you name it, looking through a syntropic lens. And if you know a little bit about me with my course in syntropy and the study in syntropic agroforestry, you'll know that that's my passion. That's what my being lights up from. And so I'm very delighted that I'm not here on my own, and that in all reality, because I'm all about full transparency, that this fantasy actually came about. I don't have a watch, but about 20 minutes ago. And so we've been working through how to get ourselves all set up, because we were actually going to just record this on Zoom, and then it went to StreamYard, and here we are. It is the first launch of Through the Syntropic Lens. So if you missed the little introduction video, the little snippet, I'm going to play it again just to give that little bit of feel before I bring on Allison and Shay. So awesome. Here we go. Hey, Allison, and hey, Shay. Thanks so much for being here. This is so delightful. You can see I'm brightly dressed with a smile, and my cells are excited, and I'm just grateful with what we've thus far have done together in our relating that has all been put on Earth Heroes TV. We've had some beautiful topics and some really very yum subjects that we explored. And when I reflect on it, well, it's how I relate to life is through that syntropic orientation. But really, that's how we kind of been dancing around and navigating with the language in unpacking some of the conversations and the subjects that we talked about. Thank you for birthing this new beginning of Syntropic Lens broadcasting with me. And I've come to realize that this is how I want to do it. I want to do it with other people, and where it's not that I'm the anchor man or whatever that fantasy is, but that we bring in just those that feel comfortable or a little bit on the edge of comfort to come on and have conversations as humans, as friends, and as connected kin. And so, Allison, thank you so much for being here. What are we going to be talking about today?
Well, thank you for that beautiful introduction, and I love this. Well, I'm a little nervous about going live, but I also realize that this is the part of this that is so important. It keeps coming down to the cells. And we live in this morphogenic universe where what happens with each of us goes out into the universe. So for me, and being responsible for what we're sending out. So both of those things are kind of inherent in this process that we're doing. I feel like it's a little bit of magic. And I don't know, my navigation through this is so intuitive, and the fact that each time we come up with a subject for our next conversation, it one leads to the other, and today we're talking about belonging, which is such a it's almost an incendiary topic these days, because the opposite of belonging is what is being inserted into our world right now, and we're having to fight back with everything that we are to find where we belong. I'm speaking for myself here, but I also see this reflected outwardly. And so I think this is probably the most kind of hub conversation we can have going forward, because everything, it's the wheel. It's everything is connected. Everything is connected. So thank you so much for being a part of this. Sav, you're the hub on this, and Shay, you're an iron around the hub, and I'm out here. Thank you so much, both of you, for showing up to these. I'm really thrilled to be here. Shay, you're on.
Thanks, Alison. Appreciate that a lot. It feels really good. It's been a couple of months now since we've got together on a Tuesday evening. For me in Australia, it's 10:30 at night. I stay up to have these conversations because I value them so much. And that,
Right.
its own experience speaks for itself. And so just to have the opportunity to be able to articulate and express the feelings around my relation to the world through a syntropic perspective, which I feel really good about receiving the experience and the perspective, the insights and the wisdom from a diverse range of people from different backgrounds, particularly people who I look up to, people who I aspire towards, and I felt in these conversations, Sovereign and Alison offer a not necessarily new perspective on it. They share, a way of life that has been around for a long time, in fact, but it's like this remembering of what life means and how we relate to all of life, and understanding energy and understanding deeper levels of frequency and environments, and how we can not just live with it, but really work with it in a conscious way so that we can direct it and shape it. And that's what I love seeing, the creative being come out in everyone in these conversations. And Sovereign has done that so well by creating this show called Through the Syntropic Lens that is just, it's so exciting because it looks at life through that perspective of energy, of syntropy, of mean, and it just feels good to relate to life from that perspective more and more and more, like a practice. For me, I'm a young person, and I'm learning daily so much. Actually, I never learned so much than I have in the last 12 months. It's been a wonderful opportunity for expansion and growth, and deep learnings and lessons, and just by expressing through words, it's become an artistic, creative outlet to really explore the deeper felt senses. And putting words to the deeper feelings, it helps me to resonate at a higher understanding of who I am and what my place is within the world. And something that has been catalytic, or been a huge catalyst for me in that process of growth through life, has been essentially the teachings of syntropy on a grounded, fundamental level, through how Sovereign articulates it, through how many permaculture teachers articulate it and express it, through the diverse range of amazing people out there who have phenomenal knowledge on this topic that would offer so much leadership and insight into life as we know it, and how we can plug back into that ecosystem that already exists for us, is already functioning optimally and thriving, and we can just weave back into it and contribute back just like a tiny little bit. And that's what feels really good, to have a contribution back to the whole. And for me, that's feels like that deeper sense of belonging, which is where we're going to go with this conversation. I want to hear actually from Sovereign his insights and the way that he can express fully and articulate for us what does belonging mean? Like, where do we start with belonging? It's such a great word to digest and to just bring home and bring back into the body, bring back into the feelings and the expressions and the words. And so I would love to hear from you, Souvereign. What's your feelings towards
My take on it, yeah.
Mm.
um, it's been such a nice journey for me to have that very natural awareness or gift to feel into words, as to, and then kind of course pull them apart a little bit. And this one is fairly simple, and yet it intrigues me as I think of it, because it's be and then longing. So it's being in the being of longing for something, because longing always relates to something. And so for me, the sense of belonging is, and many would, I hope, be in resonance with this, is that it's about belonging home. And where is home? What is home? Because the place where we belong is also the place where we feel comfortable, we feel at ease, we feel connected, we feel safe, we feel home. And so I think it's a beautiful sound, and in it lies something it's a feeling from within that longs for connectivity, that longs for being somewhere in a place where there is syntropy, where there is synergy, where there is a symbiotic ecosystem, where, as Alison said, we're currently experiencing so much separation, so much segregation, so much diversive narrative that keeps kind of like splitting up groups and concepts and ideas, and kind of pitting it against one and another. And we are in that experiencing an opportunity to really explore the opposite of that separation, and that kind of dispersing of our human interconnectivity. And I feel that what is happening right now is on our earth is really relevant, because look what we feel, it becomes relevant to talk about. This doesn't just come because, oh, let's just find a nice word on a list and no, this is so beautiful that Alison brought that forth, because it is in response to, and that's what life always does. It always responds. Everything in life, whether it's deeply entropic or whether it's deeply chaotic, it's always performing a function with purpose. And so all this mayhem and all this distortion that humans are experiencing all around the globe, with all these, I just call them distorted fantasies. And I know that humans are, and people listening may actually be in direct experience of all this misappropriation of so-called power. And to me, it's all human damage. It's grown-ups practicing fantasy as if it is a reality without even comprehending that it isn't reality. And so that to me is an entropic orientation. And entropy, it's a bad drug. And so my recommendation to people is to take Syntropy instead. And with that, through a syntropic lens, we can then look at all this distortion and all this mayhem and question the function. What is it calling then from within to start questioning? And that's where this conversation then begins, belonging. And I think it's beautiful. I'm very excited that that we're tuning in around this.
In preparing for this, Souvereign and Shay, it's just so amazing to me, as you're pointing out, that these discussions that we're having arrive organically. It's where we're supposed to be in these discussions of language, I feel. And so one of the things that I looked at in terms of belonging, because I'm going through the where do I belong on the planet? What is belonging? And the first aspect of belonging is to feel welcome somewhere. And so the place that I feel most welcome is in nature. I can walk outside my door and I don't feel any prejudice or shoulds or shouldn'ts or guilt trips or shame. I feel a great welcoming. And the difference is when I step away and I go out into the world, there's very definite unwelcomings. You don't belong here, you're not allowed here. But where I find the welcomings are in the smiles and the eyes of the people around me that I can kind of evoke from my space of belonging. And when it comes down to it, it's that I belong to myself. And through myself, I belong to the universe or the world. And so I think, so how can I participate in making others feel welcome is what that, first it was, I want to feel welcome, but then the reverse of that is how can I make others feel welcome? And one of the things that I have practiced, and I learned this as a coach a long, long time ago, was just the very small words of encouragement, of it from a simple hello with a smile in your eyes, the crinkles, to atta girl, or well done, or gosh, that's wonderful. And those things that once I started paying attention to that, I realized that there are real gaps in our communications where that is not said. Those welcoming kind of phrases that we could give to each other, which is both an opening of it's an invitation, but it's also a receiving as well in both of those. And that's how the connection is made. And so if we just start from, in a human relationship, if we just start from creating a space of welcoming, which I feel both of you do for me. I couldn't have these conversations if that wasn't true. We always you always make sure that you start the conversation, because I can do that in a formal setting, but I'm not necessarily in my own life that great at doing that. And especially in this format, I tend to go towards the more formal, which cuts out the welcoming, except on a very formal. It's just surface. It's not really inviting. It's not really receiving. So I feel like I'm working through being able to do that on all levels, not just at the appropriate moments, but I practice in the grocery store. That's my proving ground. Or the gas station, or that stuff. So that's kind of where I started with this. And I guess I'll just pass this torch back to either one of you that want to respond to that.
Yeah, I just want to bring up this image that you sent through, and just to lean into that a little bit, and building a sense of belonging. As we are hardwired for connection, that's what gives us purpose and meaning to our lives. And the absence of love or belonging and connection always leads to suffering. And it's beautiful because for me, I relate much of my knowing, not just to syntropic agroforestry or what I've come to learn about human nature or life, but I've been very fortunate to, I call it being groomed, but really being raised with an indigenous mind song and an indigenous understanding of that heart connection. And so many indigenous peoples have this and still retain this connection to who they are through their connection to their place, to their their grounds, their rivers, their mountains, nature. And when we are connected in that way, it naturally, when we engage with the natural world, we gain a sense of purpose, but also that gives us meaning. And in a syntropic human ecology, where many of the indigenous peoples have at some point in their own existence, because the reality is all the indigenous people all across the world, this wetiko, this mind virus, it went everywhere. And so no peoples have really been left unscathed, so to speak. And my upbringing with the indigenous first peoples of Aotearoa, New Zealand, has allowed me to remember the life ways of peace. And it's a beautiful way of being in a soft and real, genuine way connected to the natural world, and through that the greater patterns of the universe, and really making that the study. And that's what has been sort of imparted onto me, and it really struck so much resonance that that's really what I'm devoting, so to speak, much of my time in life to, is to study the patterns of the universe from the micro into the macro. And I have this beautiful syntropic comprehension of nature. And so I can measure all of my fantasies, particularly my spiritual fantasies. I can measure them to this metric, and it's beautiful. And I want to ask Shay to give your perspective on belonging, brother, and maybe how that ties in with what I sort of put in the description, our original indigeneity to this earth, to our Earth Mother.
Thanks, Sovereign, for sharing your perspective and inviting me to share on this as well. And Alison, such a beautiful share. I really relate, and for what I can only speak of is from my experience and my kind of lessons in life, and just receiving what you were sharing, Alison, about being a child again. It feels that in my childhood, in particular, like I was drawn to sports. Like I was very athletic, and that was my kind of orientation, because there was this sense of like community and communion and the team, and we were working together, and it was acceptance. I was naturally very good, and I just took it on easily, and there was an acceptance, feeling of belonging and acceptance from my fellow teammates, my comrades, and we were working towards something that was outside of ourselves. It was a common goal. It was like we were coming together in unity, and that's a key element in belonging for me, is this unity element, coming into union with others, and with for me, taking belonging a step further outside of the sports team. It's like, when else have I felt that sense of belonging through the thread of my life and my experiences? Multiple times, but really dropping into that deeper felt sense of really feeling into in what moment do I feel totally interconnected to the entire universe? As Sovereign spoke about the macro and the micro, what level of feeling and experience have I had where I've really just totally, it's almost like melting into the fabric of reality through boundless of time and space. And one of the experiences that I'd love to share from and having this deep sense of belonging for me has come when I was in Malaysia. In fact, it was probably about 6 or 7 years ago now, and it was a pretty wild story. But at this time, I was young, adventurous traveler, and actually searching deeply and wanting to discover, subconsciously, I didn't know this at the time, but a sense of belonging. And it was my intention to really follow my heart on that journey. And it was kind of like one of those periods where it's quite common in Australia for to graduate high school or do the university thing and then go off for a couple of months and go for this kind of rites of passage journey, and take yourself on this brave new life hero's journey and go on and exploring and discovering. And it was really beautiful and kind of like romanticized, because it was like stripping it all back and going back to the basics, the simplicity of life, and actually experimenting with life and exploring the magic that Alison spoke to at the beginning, exploring the manifestation and feeling into the intuition of where life is going to take you in your travel experience, and who you're going to meet next, and where you're going to end up, and maybe where you'll sleep, and what you'll do. And it becomes this beautiful journey. And I ended up finding myself in the middle of Malaysia, where the Orang Asli people, it's the original indigenous people, primarily live in the Taman, the national parks, and basically where the protected area of what's very left of Malaysia on the mainland. It's not so much rainforest anymore, because a lot of it's been cut down, majority around 90 to 95% for either cities like Kuala Lumpur or palm oil plantations. And so when I was in the middle of this little place, I had this opportunity to really drop into the natural environment. And right in the middle of this rainforest was a donated piece of land that was gifted for a Vipassana, which is just simply 10 days practicing for 10 hours a day technique and meditation. And one of this, and why is this relevant, this whole story of going up and doing a Vipassana? So many people have done Vipassana so many times, and I would recommend, actually, if you've never done one and you're curious as to what it is, to just explore it, research it, find if there's one near you, maybe give it a crack if that's something that you feel called to do or feel aligned, that feels like the right timing. Definitely recommend it. I've had done one in my life and had huge shifts. And the big shift that I want to share around coming into a sense of belonging was the feeling. And it was about day 8 when I was sitting there. And I had certainly gone through a lot of huge emotional releases, a lot of physical breakthroughs of, it's quite a challenging experience to sit for such a long time. Yet once I felt I had kind of broke through some of the limitations that I had in my own mind, and that was conditioned for a long time through my life, and sitting in the stillness, I had realized really tapping into that potential or that reconnection into what it feels like to be in union. And the key element here is, in the belonging sense for me in the experience, was it was a really deep feeling that was not limited by the skin or the sensation. It wasn't attachment to a kind of solid physical object that I could see with my senses, or I could it was more of a feeling of warmth and acceptance, and this deeper unconditional loving graceful acceptance into something that is beyond this frail biological being that was actually the framework of reality, of existence, and having an awareness that that there is no I, but it's actually all interconnected. And it was extremely humbling in a lot of sense, in a lot of ways, and it was also really liberating as well at the same time. And how does that relate to understanding more indigenous perspective to knowing who we are and why we're here? Some of these fundamental questions to humanity, essentially through the ages. And when we look at culture and we speak about the mind song, we talk about the virus, and we talk about all of these things around how we perceive our reality through how we're groomed in our culture, the deeper culture of knowing our place within the world, and where it's become a little bit maybe not in alignment with the natural flow of life, is when we've successfully, to our detriment, removed ourselves from the ecosystem of life. And for me, realizing that the culture of my histories, like, and not just the culture, but the connection through a lineage, through the ages of my ancestors, of my grandparents and my mother and father and their grandparents and their great grandparents, that there, if I go far back enough, actually it's all of the same thing, and it's all actually interconnected in one beautiful sense of belonging to the earth and belonging to a human family, belonging to a deep ancestral indigenous lineage of the ages, in fact, as far as I'm aware of where we truly came from. And these are the deeper questions that these conversations can really just open up like a can of worms, because you could almost take it wherever you want. You could, have a conversation about a traveling trip overseas, or talk about coming together in a community and having a sense of belonging. It's great, and it's really exciting. And yeah, it's fun to go on little tangents, because it's amazing what happens when we put a camera in front of someone and it's like, boom, all my greatest fears come into fruition. And this is a great opportunity for me to remember that I belong to the earth no matter what, always, regardless of how people might see me from their lens or their perspective, or regardless of how I see myself and the self-judgment, the self-critique and the self-perfectionism. But I can really belong back into here and go back home and know that deep down that I am connected and I am loved and I am that vibration, that feeling, that frequency. And it feels good just to have a small sense of belonging.
Wow.
Yeah, I didn't expect that one to flow out, but that felt good. What about you, Souvereign? Could you share a story, an example when you felt really like it was like, wow, I feel like because for me as well, in belonging, a key element I missed is security and safety. Like in a community, like people are like, bringing it back to reality of human relating, like it feels good to have, like, to know that like they've got my back always. Like I've got this crew and they're fully stoked for me no matter what I do, and they'll be there when I fall, and they'll just like, there's like this real this web of connection that through awareness feels good to know that it's also holding me up. And it's cool because Bob had mentioned in here in the comments, hey Bob, he's tracking with us, which is really cool. He had mentioned about lifting each other up and belonging, in a community we belong to, we're supporting each other through that web. And even if it's not even physical, like we're supporting each other through a virtual world. It's like it's like crazy. This is real life. These threads are connecting where we can support each other no matter where we are on the earth, and we're actually lifting up the earth as much as it's lifting up us. So it's quite unique time to be alive. And yeah, Sovereign, you got a unique perspective on life based upon your experience, and I'm curious.
Well, I'm really curious. Like I'm so enjoying this whole experience, and thanks for the reminder. I'm just sitting here. I just closed my eyes and I was like, oh yeah, I'm recording this right now. Because it's easy for all of us to be in a orientation to do this for other, but our whole sort of premise of this brave new life is really that this, I'm doing this for me. And so I need to keep making it about the growth that I can embody. And so when I just heard you speak, I was like, yeah, okay, I'm recording this. This is beautiful. And I'm recording it here. I'm like, and these are the beautiful reminders that I feel we in such organic ways can sound out to each other. And that is uplifting. That is just, it's just beautiful. I was just really curious how Allison's experiences of our relating and what has come up for you, because my curiosity is leaning into that.
Well, of course, all kinds of stuff came up. Um, I really, as you actually got to the places where I kind of instinctively going with this, because I think one thing that I have observed in my own life is the experience of belonging is different for males and females in this reality. And so you got finally to the place that is really important for me after welcoming, is the safety part. And that's not something I've experienced in this life, other than when this is like the Brave New Life is the place where I've felt the safest, and therefore can dig into this with some beautiful receiving hearts and minds safely. And and if it wasn't that first welcoming part of I'm willing to receive, which I feel every time. This is the Syntropy agroforestry part. Every time I step out my door into the forest, I feel this message that says I'm willing to receive from the forest around me. And I feel completely safe. Like last night, the peepers are out here. It's springtime. And it's one of my favorite sounds. I also happen, as a sound healer, to believe that it helps to hold the grid, the frequency grid of the planet. So I go out and I help them along, but mostly I just listen. So last night I go out, and it's always a toss-up. Do I bring my flashlight, or do I just go outside and go in the dark? And I, it's the programming that says there's something to be afraid of out there, because I have never, ever, ever been attacked by anything in the dark in the forest. I've spent a lot of time out there, and it's always welcoming. And my first experience of welcoming on this planet was a sense of safety that a big white pine provided for me when I was about 6 years old, and I ran away from home to seek safety, and I put my back against the pine, and it was completely and utterly welcoming to me. And it felt like I was being embraced. I was being welcomed by this pine. And so I kind of lost my train of thought there, but so the safety aspect of it is really, I think, what is probably at the core that is threatening the sense of belonging. And really, belonging is a sense. It's a feeling, and but it's also, I'm sure, if we looked at it, it would be a sense of magnetism, where the energy is connecting. It's a sense of frequency. It's a sense of resonance. And the only thing that is required for that to happen between human beings is for both beings to be willing to receive and welcoming. And really, that's such a, if I look at that for myself, and like in a situation where I'm uncomfortable, let's just use going to the grocery store without a mask on for reality's sake. And the way that I have to feel welcomed into that space when I walk into the grocery store is first to, I have to feel safe, and I have to feel welcome. Well, I know, because I've been there over and over the past year, that I'm still welcome. I get, smiles from the cashiers. I get, little help here and there from the cashiers. I never get any shame and blame, but that's because I go in with a welcoming of my own, a receiving. I don't go in with something around me to protect me. I do in the sense of white light, but that's a space filled with a sense of humor, with a smile, with literal sunlight. Like, so I'm literally using that sunlight to beam outwards. But in doing that, I'm welcoming also the receiving from those people in the grocery store. And that makes me feel welcome. And I feel safe because I'm good with myself. I'm feeling smiley. I'm feeling sunny inside. Um, and so cultivating that in myself is the key, while the world around me is disconnecting and I don't belong in it. And, you know, it's the fact that I don't belong so many places in that programming is really apparent, and I don't feel safe in it. Everywhere I come into contact with it, I don't feel safe. But that's, you know, that's also the reflection of me as well, you know.
I love it. And I'm just gonna upload a here we go. Stick this one on the top. So I just want to briefly, this is beautiful what you raised, and so many beautiful thoughts are coming up for me around this. You know, this looks like a cute little drawing of the earth. And for me, I've come into awareness of the difference between, like, when I say the world, I could have called that the world, right? And you could look at that and I could say, I love the world. But that's not a picture of the world. That is a picture of Earth, or at least a drawing of it. And so I refer to a lot of what you're relating around to the world of men. And if you look up what world really means, it has nothing to do with the Earth. It's just a whole bunch of, and I have another word for that, fruity land. It's a whole bunch of belief systems conjured up in, you know, a collective form of a fruity land that is full of ideas and ideologies and rights and wrongs and goods and bads and so forth. And they make up the norms and I guess the values of our current civilizational and societal frameworks. And yet I have never really felt that in that context of the matrix, the world of men, that I was having to figure out my place in. I never felt that I was a part of that. And so being in that world, but not of it, right? That's what's often being shared. And this notion of a world is a place in our minds. It's the world of men, it's the world of money, it's the world of fame, it's whatever real sort of realm you want to entertain. You can go there in your mind, because that's where most of these fantasies and these orientations and these belief systems are really kind of embedded. And it's a huge difference between the world of men, or the world of however we want, the Western world, another word for it. And then there's the earth. And so there's earth and the living, the natural, the organic life. And then there is this ID form of reality, which are two different things. One is a world and one is actually a real earth. And you could say, well, they're kind of interchangeable, but this is where I kind of go in quite sincerely in my comprehension of all the distorted outcomes that humanity is expressing itself as. I've discovered that language predominantly has governed and continues to govern people's perceptions. And so in these subtle word sounds that, you know, why would you want to pull those apart? That is where I go, because if we're not willing to go into the subtle and into the microbial sort of origins of distortions, well, we will never be addressing what actually at the external level in our ecosystem as a human ecology shows up, where there is separation, where there is fear, where there is a sense of not feeling safe and not feeling that we are secure. And when I look at the Western world, we've created an entirely artificial way of providing a sense of security, whether it's through a monetary means, and it's not that you know, there's no right or wrong in this universe, but there is so much fear practiced around a lack of money. And so when I really connected in with this syntropic orientation that life operates from, and we are life. Our cells are our nature. We have a human nature that is actually syntropic by default, but through all the kind of lost connections that have happened over these many thousands of years, we have ended up in these kind of like, concrete boxes where we have safety and security because we lock our doors from our human family. We try not to make too much eye contact on the street because why? Because we fear. What do we fear? And we've ended up in a world that is full of contracts, and it's also full of contrast to our human nature. And what I feel it has done for me, and I've kind of stepped out of that and re-emerged through it, and I've made use of the function of all that entropic programming, all that impeding and that freedom limiting structure, really. And again, I just have to come back to human damage. Governments, it's just grown-up human beings practicing fantasies as if it is a reality without even comprehending that it isn't. And the funny thing is that the politicians, so-called politicians, I like to call them fantasy politicians, they actually understand that it is all theater. If you've ever been to the place called Australia, and you would turn on the whatever channel covers whatever they do in this so-called parliament, it's an absolute dog's breakfast theatrical production that has nothing to do with caring, with being a custodian, being a true steward for the next generations. It's fully loaded, locked and loaded human damage, just firing and wiring together. And that creates then for the people of that live on these lands, creates the structural so-called bureaucracy that all the rules are being kind of governed and steered through and so forth. And I've said this before, I feel that it's not a sign of good health to function properly in an insane society. I don't feel that it's, yes, there is a sense of resilience and a sense of kind of more of the sovereignty that we can reclaim and return to within by making use of the function. But how many people don't even know that you can make use of the function of your own judgments towards the government, towards the third party, towards anybody out there, and find out more about yourself? This hasn't been part of our upbringing. This hasn't been part of our schooling. Instead, we've been deducated. And I mean that. We've been deducated. We've been taught, brought down to operate on a whole bunch of belief systems. And if we go through time, we can trace it all back, where it all came from. And Henry Ford and his beautiful ideas of training up, the workers and the Rockefellers. And there's so many factions involved in how all of our education programs in the entire Western world is all operated through the United Nations. And if you dig a little bit further and you figure out who is actually writing all the curriculum and how that all sort of trickles down, you end up with the Lucis Trust, which originally was called the Lucifer Trust. And if you dig a little bit into that, you get into really strange places of really occult belief systems and the entertainment of very distorted fantasies that are putting one's own, well, it's what they are doing is that they are speaking on behalf of other people. And this is something that in the full reality of life, I can only speak on behalf of my own experience. So we are having institutions put in place over, many hundreds, if not thousands of years. They kind of progressed and one succession followed the other. And the reality is it isn't working. And I think that we're currently in that time and space together as a human family where it's becoming really kind of like in our face that it isn't working. I don't feel that a lot of humans can actually see the forest through the trees because there's just so much distortion and narratives being fired. And it just kind of keeps bubbling up all around us in ways to kind of distract us from knowing who we are, from feeling who we are, to being in tune with our sense of, you know what, I actually belong here. I am of the earth. Many people ask me, because I'm living here in Bali, of course, oh, where are you from? I'm from Earth. And people like that. They kind of laugh. They give us, yeah. So I was born in the place called the Netherlands, but I'm from Earth. I train myself to speak language that is affirming for me where I belong to. I've dug very much in my own roots, and I entertained the fantasy that my ancestors were Vikings, and that I am maybe have Viking blood. But realistically, my grandparents weren't really the most inspiring human beings on planet Earth. They were just having their life. They went through the Second World War, and they were born in the First World War. So, and these were all orchestrated wars anyways by the big banking cartels. So they didn't really stand a chance. And yet their beautiful human nature was there in their ways, still connected to the land, growing their own food. But for me to kind of feel a sense of spiritual connection to my ancestry, I didn't really, and I've gone really into it. And where I really landed is that I have a mother, and of course I have a genetical mother, and I love her as well. But I have a real mother earth that I belong with, and that I'm also feeling very much through that, me choosing to belong to the earth. I feel so much more inspired to be a caretaker of the earth, to be a custodian of the earth, to speak for her life ways, which are the syntropic life ways of nature. And so I feel that that's what's coming through for me in relation to all of this. And I'm thankful that you brought that inspiration about, Alison. It's really, really nice to dive into these spaces within ourselves and allow just to, whatever wants to come through, to speak out. And I feel there's beauty in that.
Oh God, it's so amazing for me to listen to you, Sovereign, as you make these connections. I mean, here I am. I'm entering my 8th decade in a few weeks, and I'm still learning. I was born very early into understanding that I belong to the earth too, but I don't think, I think as a core understanding that has been there, but I've confused belonging in my life to something external, and looked for it that way, while I kept this inner connection to earth hidden almost, because nothing in my life around me really I wouldn't say set the table, but because I live in Vermont, so we're probably more connected here than in a lot of places in the rest of the United States. Certainly, we're less connected to the earth here than like in Bali, where I can still hear nature through your microphone. And in Vermont, nature's taken a beating, which I'm very aware of and very clear on. But you also ended up saying something that I found, I actually had, like I said, done a little bit of research on what came up under belonging on the internet. And this came out of Silicon Valley, which I'm going, okay, this is suspect. But so here's what came out of Silicon Valley in this process of belonging. And clearly it's for corporate culture. But so it starts with welcoming, feeling safe, commitment, and then engaging. So we've done the welcoming and the safe part, and you brought in that when you belong, you then want to commit to it and engage with it, which I agree with. I think that's the full circle right there. And once you belong to something, you cannot help but commit to engaging with it. And yeah, so I can't take credit for that. Thank Silicon Valley. The only time we'll ever thank them. But yeah. So for me, the commitment part. This is me committing right here. This is around because of this language that is so important to me. And when I'm writing, I'm much more conscious of how I use them. So this is a really good exercise because I'm much less conscious of how I use the language. I'm just flowing with it. But Shay, what are your feelings about all of this?
Yeah, thanks for sharing, Alison. I really love that full circle explanation that you offered there. That feels really whole and really connected and feels really good. I also just wanted to share that specifically around what Sovereign was just really tapping into around relating to the world that we find ourselves in and how to function within that with coming together in unity, coming together to connect those threads. And I just wanted to just let everyone know who's watching today, this is a really great, exciting conversation. But on Friday, we're actually going to unpack it on a little bit more depth. And there's going to be a few more speakers invited to share. And we want to invite you to be a part of the conversation as well, actually, to engage and hear your perspective. I believe everyone has value and has a function, has purpose in this life. And it'd be really great to hear from you. We'll be alive and you can engage through the comment section, and we'll get opportunity to really dive a little bit deeper into really what is going on today and how we can come into awareness around that and use it, as Sovereign has expressed, to shift things and use it to come back into more wholeness and more connection and more belonging. Use it as a function to recycle and regenerate, to return back to the earth and let it do its natural process, natural composting and recycling, and we can come back into what is actually going on. It's going to be really exciting, and this is your official invitation to join us.
Awesome. If you want to be invited for the accurate date and time, the best place to get info would be by, what do you suggest, Shay? It's beautiful. We're very organic. It is going to be really something that I have not been willing yet to kind of enter into. I've written about it on my blog. There's quite a bit of content around how to make use of the function of entropy, or entropic behavior, or the mayhem and the chaos. And now I want to sort of really delve into that a little bit more with others that have said yes. And these are all people from the Brave New Life community. And if you feel to tune in, I have the solution. I'll leave this one to you, and I'm going to put something here in the comments that people can tune in with if they want to get a direct invite for that that conversation, or at least know where to find it afterwards, because some people may just be drifting on the web and think, oh, this is nice for now, and life changes. But I invite you to connect in with bravenewlife.net and become part of our community conversations, where we are all finding each other every week. And the people that we're going to share the conversation with, they are also all part of our Brave New Life ecosystem. And it's a beautiful, beautiful, thriving gathering of real human beings receiving each other, sharing, expressing. It's real, raw, relevant, relating. And yeah, I feel that may be a nice little invite for people to tune into. But I'm going to put a link here in the comments. Yes.
Great. I just want to throw out something that came across my vision as you were talking too, and that is that entropy basically is a theory. It's a model. It's an abstraction, in in the inverted reality of what is. It's outside ourselves, and we're in a world right now where the where entropy is in play, where we're basing everything on theory, we're basing policy on theory and models and abstractions rather than what is. And this is what syntropy is. It is. It's not a theory. You can touch it, you can feel it, you can witness it. Where entropy is consequence. You can always see the consequence of entropy, but I don't necessarily feel like it's real in and of itself. It is consequence of not being in syntropy. I just want to throw that out there as kind of a framework, maybe for moving forward in discussions on this. Theory versus reality, model versus reality, or model versus syntropy, that kind of a thing. That's kind of where I'm ended up on this.
I like this. I feel really good about saving that little bit because I have to hop off. I have a lot of Lazarus stuff to get
Okay.
for the Lazarus Initiative for New Earth, and I have to do some preparation and some email writing. So let's capture that what you just said, because I think that was really quite a beautiful expression there of the entropy, syntropy, and it's really jiving with my cells in hearing others also, and because these are not new ideas. It's not a new ideology. It's not like, oh, sovereigns come up with, or people that came up with this new way of navigating with nature in a abundance orientated ways. Like, now, these are the life ways of life, and these are what our cells can recognize and feel and relate to from an intrinsic and innate place of feelings. And when you were speaking, I just felt all this bubbliness coming out. So that's really lovely. I'd like to entertain the fantasy and propose this fantasy to you as an offer to contract for our next Through the Syntropic Lens, relating around entropy, the fantasy of entropy and the realness of the reality of syntropy. I love it. Something along those lines.
Yeah.
Bit of a long title. Anybody watching, I'm just putting the sign up little form in there so that at least you can get an email with a date and a time. And I am pretty sure, Bob, you may want to leave a comment in the comments. I'm pretty sure that would be really nice to have you on there, Bob. What do you say, mate?
Is Bob the only one on? Do we want to take questions? I know you have to move on, but
I have to hop off. But if there are any questions, then people can put them in. I feel really complete. I just want to check in with Shay, because Shay, it's now coming close to midnight, and I know we really can't get enough of this. That
he's so cute when he sleeps.
all right, Bob, you're gonna get that invite. That's gonna come to you. I have your email address already, so that's all sorted. I'm gonna at least say goodbye and peel off. And then I'll leave you two to close out. Thank you, Brother Shay. It's just such a love listening to you share these beautiful experiences and stories. And I love it how my cells are able to go on that journey and feel the relevancy within my own being around what you're sharing. And the same for you, Alison. It's such a gift, just humans sharing their authentic being ways. It's a total yay, my cells. So
Yay.
hopping off. See you in the timing. Ciao for now.
Ciao for now. Okay, Shay. I'm going to say goodnight too.
Good
I'm
night.
so grateful for all of this, and thank you for being the one that holds down the gears and your and your beautiful sharings. Thank you.
Thank you too, Alison. I'm going to close out with a little Syntropic video and say good night.
Thank you. Good night.